The startup costs were about $500, and that was all in putting in some electrical plugs in my third bedroom. I went to Best Buy and got 0% financing, zero money down on a couple ovens. And within 3 months, I had to start hiring people because I couldn't keep up with the flow. And within 9 months, we were approached by another bakery who said, "Hey, we're open during the day. We have this downtown location open at night. Would you be interested in sharing space?" So they just done a build out. It was a new restaurant. So less than a year into it, we got this brand new bakery in downtown Athens and didn't have to put any capital expenditures in. It just got to pay rent and operate out of there.
Welcome to the Founding Partner Podcast. Join your host, Jonathan Hawkins, as we explore the fascinating stories of successful law firm founders. We'll uncover their beginnings, triumph over challenges, and practice growth. Whether you aspire to launch your own firm, have an entrepreneurial spirit, or are just curious about the legal business, you're in the right place. Let's dive in.
Welcome to Founding Partner Podcast. I'm your host, Jonathan Hawkins. We've got a cool guest today. We've got Brian Gamsey. He has recently started his firm with a partner. I think maybe they're 2-3 months out. And they're doing some pretty cool stuff. So we're gonna dig into all of that. Brian, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us where you are, what kind of work you do, and a little bit about your firm.
Thanks, Jonathan. Appreciate you having me today. I'm Brian Gamsey, founding partner of Mills Gamsey with my partner, Austin Mills. And we are a law firm that operates as a technology company. And we work in the technology transactions, commercial contract space. And we really try to leverage technology as much as we can and offer some both traditional and non-traditional services to our clients, focusing on technology transactions, software, IP development, any sort of transaction that you could imagine with software or technology is kind of our wheelhouse.
So we're going to dig into all of that stuff, including what you guys are doing with technology and some of the other just sort of basics of, you've just started a firm and there are people out there that want to know what's it like in the first few months. Before we get all that, you've got a pretty interesting background before you became a lawyer. And I want to dive into some of that because I think it's pretty cool. And I think it probably informs how you approach your law practice. So before you were a lawyer, what kind of stuff were you doing? Maybe give us a high level and we'll dig in.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. When I was in law school, it was referred to as non-traditional, which was, I think, just a nice way of calling me old. But I started as a transactional advisor services for a big four accounting firm doing goodwill impairment and intangible asset valuation, which was about as exciting as it sounds. It really meant I built a lot of models in Excel. From there, I went and worked as a part of a startup with a bunch of former Aon. After that, I'm going to scratch that and not refer to the names of the people.
Okay. Yep.
So
Note. Let's just start over.
Let me take it from the top. So I started my career in financial consulting and then was part of a startup group that helped a large hospital organization transition from being a governmental run organization to a standalone 501c3 hospital, and then started a charity, and then started a cookie delivery company and bakery.
Yeah, we're going to get into that for sure. But let's talk about transitioning that sort of governmental or nonprofit or was it governmental to a nonprofit? Is that what it was?
Yeah, we was working with Grady Health Systems. At the time, it was part of the Fulton DeKalb Hospital Authority, so it was kind of its own branch of government. And they were transitioning to being a 501c3 hospital. So the transition there, we were serving as special assistant to the CEO and CFO, and really helping organize the hospital from the bureaucracy of a governmental run agency to some of the efficiencies with processes that should be run by a non-governmental agency.
And so how old were you when you were doing that?
I started when I was 24.
You were a young pup, and you got to be in the room, right? As the big boy or big girl decisions are being made. What was that like?
It was an amazing experience. One of there was a particular meeting I was thinking of. We were having a really intense conversation because there was some conversation about how we were going to communicate, how the hospital was going to communicate potentially shutting down some of the services. And I can remember one of the senior people at the hospital. I'm on my laptop, have my laptop open and taking notes while we're working. And they stopped in the middle of the conversation and said, "What is this kid doing? Is he playing on the computer while we're working on this?" And what I had done was drafted out the plan of outline and sent it around to everyone during the call to solve the problem. A lot of times when we were dealing with these kind of organizations, especially then, it was kind of technology was not, certainly within the government, was not being utilized in the right ways. And I think it kind of took people aback that you could actually live solve problems. And so getting that experience and earning the trust of those stakeholders was really invaluable, to be able to be kind of boots on the ground solving those problems. And some were simple and some were complex, but it really informed the way I thought about organizations moving forward.
And I would imagine another piece of it is switching from slow governmental bureaucracy type attitude to something new. I bet you a lot of people were scared out of their minds. Number one, change just scares everybody, but probably some folks were going to lose their jobs. I don't know. I'm sure that was part of it also.
Yeah, I mean, part of I think you hit the nail right on the head. The unknown scares a lot of people. And I think that what we were able to prove out was that everyone, and what we aimed to do was everyone could keep their jobs as long as they changed what their roles were in those jobs. So instead of having to send it to agency 1 to have it approved by agency 2 to have it voted on by constituency 3, if you could manage that internally, you could create a lot of efficiencies, make the hospital run in a way that went from the red to the black, and everyone could keep their job because there would be more money to go around.
Yeah, I mean, that would have been a tremendous learning experience. I think it probably has served you well. You learned so much. You learn, number one, when you're the kid playing on your computer, you have to figure out how to gain some trust and authority there, but then also how to just manage the fear and manage change. I think that is an invaluable experience. So did you go from that straight? I want to talk about the cookie company next. That's a cool story. So did you go straight to the cookie company, or was there something in between?
So in between, I started a nonprofit organization called Triple Play Foundation. Triple Play uses sports to promote health, education, and community service to at-risk youth, and we got programs in Athens, Georgia, still to this day. So I moved down to Athens, was focusing on that. As part of the thank yous I would send out, I would sometimes send out cookies and a little cartoon to go along with it, thanking them. And as it would happen, the head of the entrepreneurship program at UGA saw the cartoon, saw the cookies, said this was a clever idea. Had I ever thought about turning it into a business? I said, well, I haven't, but I know in other college campuses, there are cookie delivery companies, and Athens doesn't have one right now. And so I think that it could be successful. I've seen it be successful on other college campuses. I think it would be successful here in Athens. He said, how would you like to go into a business plan competition and pitch this? I said, nah, I'm not really interested. I kind of enjoying what I'm doing now. And he said, how about I guarantee that you'll make the finals? I said, all right, I can do that. So I was in the finals to win $150,000 seed money. The angel that was going to write the check after I made my pitch said that this was the dumbest idea he had ever heard, and that there was no way it could be successful. And so after that, I knew I had to start the company. So doing the competition, I found a loophole in the Georgia Food Act that allowed me to turn the third bedroom of my house into a licensed bakery as long as I fell within certain guidelines, non-consecutive days, minimum number of hours. And so on Thursday nights and Saturday nights, we started with one cookie out of the third bedroom of my house.
So how did you promote the thing? Let's start there. How did people find out about this? Well, we'll talk about the name. I think it's a great name and the brand. Maybe we'll start there.
The name of the company was Always Baked Goodies. I have the sense of humor of a 12-year-old boy, and so I think that the concept that every cookie is baked is funny. And so the cartoon was this little hippie cookie that would walk around being enlightened about the beauty of life. And from there, we started the company. The first way that we marketed was we got onto a third-party platform that was the delivery service. They actually did the deliveries. And as luck would have it, we were the only A. And so Always Baked was on the top of the list. And so people started seeing Always Baked. And that's kind of how we got our name out there to start.
Was that by accident, or had you thought through that?
I would love to say I was smart enough to have thought through that, but no, it just worked out that way, that there was no other. We were the top of the A list on the website.
All right, so you start this thing out of your bedroom, basically. How, take us through sort of the growth. How long did it take to sort of catch?
Yeah, so, the startup costs were about $500, and that was all in putting in some electrical plugs in my third bedroom. I went to Best Buy and got 0% financing, zero money down on a couple ovens. And within 3 months, I had to start hiring people because I couldn't keep up with the flow. And within 9 months, we were approached by another bakery who said, "Hey, we're open during the day. We have this downtown location open at night. Would you be interested in sharing space?" So they'd just done a build out. It was a new restaurant. So less than a year into it, we got this brand new bakery in downtown Athens and didn't have to put any capital expenditures in. It just got to pay rent and operate out of there. Then we went and opened our own brick and mortar location. Then we started getting into some restaurants. Then we started getting into some grocery stores.
Wow. A retail store, I guess I'd call this retail. That's pretty intense type business, big time grind, I would think.
It was.
How was that?
It was a lot of work. Because of our brand and the nature of what we were doing. The store didn't close on most nights until 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. And then there's cleanup and then there's inventory. So, I was putting in, on a good day, 15, 16-hour days, sleep, wake up, do it again. And that was a good day if I was able to get it done in 15, 16 hours. So it was food service is not for the weak of heart.
I was listening to a podcast. There are a bunch of them out there, but the guy who started Raising Cane's, and, he talks about, part of their strategy was they were going to be there when all the people rolled out of the bars, all the students rolled out of the bars at LSU. They were going to be the ones right there. And it seemed to work. Obviously it's one of the biggest chains now. Yeah. He said they were sleeping, waking up, taking turns all night. That's a grind for sure. All right. So at some point, well, let me ask, you're not in the cookie business anymore, right?
I'm not in the cookie business anymore.
So what happened? How'd you get out of that?
So a confluence of events, I would say, is how I got into that. About 3 years into it, a separate cookie company hit us with a cease and desist. Turns out part of their strategy was find local independents that have similar business models, move in across the street, which they did, and hit with a cease and desist and try to scare them. The cease and desist they brought to me was a trademark infringement claim. I was quite confident that we had not infringed their trademark. I reached out to a few lawyers, found somebody who said, this is a great case. I'm willing to take it on contingency. I think you're going to win. And so we accepted their cease and desist, said, prove we're violating your trademark. And then we countersued them for violation of the Lanham Act and sought to have them have their trademark canceled.
That's
It
pretty
was,
awesome.
yeah. Their reaction was like, whoa, we didn't say you had to stop using your trade. That's not what we were trying to say. I don't think they expected that reaction. In doing so, I started getting very much, at the same time this was happening, I'm negotiating a deal to get into a lot of supermarket. It was going to be a big contract. We were probably going to need to build a warehouse to kind of get to fulfill the shelf space that we were trying to guarantee. And I started getting more invested in researching the Lanham Act and learning IP law than I was in focusing on bringing the contract to a close and focusing on building out the warehouse and getting all that logistics in place. Part of that was because the lawyer I hired was on contingency, and I turned into the client that I now despise and started doing the work myself. And so I would be doing this research, and I reached out to a buddy who was a lawyer and said, hey, I know I'm being a jerk by doing the work. I don't want to look stupid too. Will you look at this to make sure that what I'm saying makes sense? And he said, you seem to like this more than the cookie stuff. Have you ever thought about being a lawyer? I was like, nah, not really. That's not really what I'm interested in. He said, tell you what, bet you $1,000 you can't get a higher LSAT score than me. And thank God for my buddy. Shout out Billy Olson. If it wasn't for him, he knew exactly what he was doing. He knew that this was what I started getting passionate about. And once I find a passion, it's hard for me to let go. And as a result of that, took the LSAT.
So, did you win the $1,000? That's the question.
I did win the $1,000. I didn't make him pay it.
That's the question. Did he pay it?
He offered to pay it, and the wisdom he passed on by leading me down the path that he knew was right for me was more than enough in payment.
Well, that's pretty sweet. So you found your calling, I'll say it, in the law. But, and we'll get into this, you also get to use all your business experience now that you have your own firm. But before we get to starting your firm, you end up going into law. What was your path? You go to big firm, mid firm, where did you go?
Yeah, I started at a big firm. I was in Atlanta at a firm, again, my going into law school, I really wanted to focus on technology and IP. And so I tried to find the firm that I thought had the best reputation for that, and started my career at Morris Manning and was able to work in their technology transactions group. And boy, am I happy I made that decision. It was such a good, the training and the experience that I was able to get there really laid the groundwork for a successful legal career.
You started your firm how long ago? 2 months, 3 months?
April 1, 2024. So yeah, right over 2 months.
All right. Yeah. So let's talk about it. Why'd you do it? What led you to do it?
So a few things. So my partner, Austin, and I, the first time we met, the first project we worked on together back in 20 was a contract automation project. It was kind of the first iteration of smart contracts. And really it was kind of using a Excel-like coding to build out contracts to automate that process. And there was at the time an initiative to try to move in the direction of offering an alternative to the traditional bill by the hour legal services. And we ended up, the goal was for us to build out 8 contracts, and I think we ended up building out 54 contracts. And when we finished, there was no champion to try to promote that type of work because it didn't fit within the traditional model. How do you bill by the hour for something that used to take 3 hours and now takes 15 minutes? And so fast forward, the technology has improved, and at most law firms, the business model has stayed the same. And we thought, Austin and I both simultaneously and independently came to the conclusion we thought there was a better way to approach the practice of law. In my opinion, the worst kept secret in the legal community is that the business model is built on inefficiencies. If you're an associate at a law firm and you and I are associates at a law firm, and you take 5 hours to turn one contract, and I take 1 hour to turn five contracts, you're the better associate. That doesn't make sense. The clients deserve better than that, and that's why we started Mills Gamsey.
Yeah, that inefficiency issue. I mean, it's, I look at this, I'm sure you've looked at it too. It's sort of like the Netflix blockbuster. It's really hard to turn the tanker from within. You almost have to go jump in a speedboat and then sort of outmaneuver from outside. And I take it that's sort of what you guys are doing, or that's how you view it.
Yeah, that's our approach. I mean, look, no knock on the traditional legal business model. It's very lucrative. There are a lot of ways that you can approach the practice of law. We just think that, if someone were to ask for their lawyer to research case law and they didn't use technology, but instead they went down to the library and they pulled up the books and then they checked those books and they charged 8 hours for what now can be done in 10 minutes, the client would balk at that. Well, we think that's the direction a lot of the legal practices are going in, and we wanted to be thought leaders in that space. We didn't want to wait for that paradigm shift to occur. We wanted to be part of it.
So you guys, you're 2 months in or so. Let's talk about sort of your messaging or the branding of the firm. I think you're leading with sort of the tech stuff. So how do you guys message out there to the world and to your potential clients?
Yeah, so, part of our communication is, look, we're highly trained, classically trained technology transaction lawyers. We are well versed and we're experts in this area. And if you want to have the traditional legal services, we're happy to provide that for you at a more cost-effective approach than a big law firm would be able to offer you with the same level of expertise. But we're also utilizing right now, we're utilizing a stack of technology that allows us to kind of productize certain services to our clients. So, for example, contract auditing, contract reviews, chain of title reviews, some of these exercises that are routine in that they are repetitive on what needs to be caught. We're taking those and we're saying, instead of billing you by the hour for it, what would have taken us 4 hours, we're going to charge you what 2.5 hours would be, but it's only going to take us 15 minutes. And we're being upfront about that. We're saying, look, we're utilizing this technology. We're going to operate like almost every other business operates, and we're going to build margins. And most of our clients are software companies or in that space, tech-enabled space, and they get it. And everyone wants better, faster, cost-effective legal services. And I think we've figured out a way to do that.
Real quick, thanks for listening. If you're getting any value out of this podcast, please take 2 seconds to hit the subscribe button and leave a 5-star review. It would really mean a lot to me. Now back to the show. So let's talk about the tech stack a little bit. I'm not asking for your trade secrets, but I do know you use AI as part of this. I know you use some other stuff too. And I know AI is the hot thing right now. Everybody's talking about AI. But as part of your process, you went out and you basically researched. I mean, there are lots of different, what I'll call AI products out there. So how did you sort of settle in on the ones that you guys were going to use?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, we took basically 10 months and sandboxed as many different products as we could. And we were really trying, our goal was to kind of try to break the product, right? Let's push on it we know what output we're looking for. We know the demo is going to show us that we're going to be able to get the output we want. We also want 2 weeks to be able to play with it, for lack of a better term, push on it and see what works. And, really testing for type 1 and type 2 errors, right? False positives and false negatives. The way we look, right now where the technology is, it's not perfect. There's going to be errors. And what we were more concerned about is we didn't want, the way we were flagging these agreements, we wanted to make sure if it missed something by being over inclusive, we wanted it to tell us that something was wrong that wasn't. not miss something that was wrong and tell us it was fine. And we found a lot of the products on the marketplace right now really were not approaching it from a commercial contract standpoint in the way that we wanted to approach it, and B, instead of focusing on a highly specialized area, they were trying to be all things to all people. And our experience was the products that tried to be all things to all people had more flaws than the more specialized products.
We've all heard by this point the law firm or lawyer up in New York that used AI, ChatGPT, whatever it was, to draft a brief and file it without checking it. I don't think you guys do any litigation, but in terms of the discussions you have with your clients, how do you talk through that with them in terms of, there are going to be mistakes, this is how we're sort of fixing it, and then, let them decide. And then another piece on that, the question comes up a lot with some of these products is, the siloing of client information and potential release of that. How do you deal with those two issues?
So I'll do the second question first. From the data issue, first and foremost, we're upfront before we use any technology. We say, this is our technology stack. This is what it does. Here are the third parties we're using. Here's kind of the proprietary stuff we're using. Here's what the contracts that we have or what we've built says it does. Are you comfortable with this? Some clients say no. Some clients say, yeah, it says that it has its own separate instance and that they're logically segregating all the data and it's not training on the data, but they're still not comfortable with it. And we're totally okay with that. That's a completely reasonable position to have. Going back to the people fear the unknown, you don't know what you don't know right now with some of these AI products. And so before we ever use any of the AI or any of the LLMs that we have, we're very upfront and transparent with our clients and get their approval and lay out the framework. The second part of that is we are very stringent that our technology is not lawyers and we're not asking it to practice law. We're using it as a force multiplier. I think it would be the same way that it would be negligent to have a attorney that's 3 months into practice take the final cut of an M&A deal and then send it back to the client. It would be negligent to let a piece of technology without putting eyes on it and say, here you go, client, here's the final product, or here you go, judge, here's the final product. Where the technology is today, it's not a bike. You can't just hop on it and take it where you want to go. It's a rocket ship, and you need to be an astronaut if you want to be able to maintain control. And that's how we're approaching it. As we know the limitations of the product because we have built out and tested so many different types of products. We know our processes, and we have processes and methodologies in place to check. We have redundancies on redundancies. And so we know enough to know that there are limitations. And so, the final review always lays with the person, not the technology.
That's sounds intimidating to most lawyers, I'm sure. They're like, oh my God, you guys have done a deep dive, spent 10 months looking at all this stuff. You've created redundancies. Most lawyers are like, what's ChatGPT? So yeah, I can imagine, you're right. This thing is a rocket ship. It's going to happen. And it's at some point, everybody's either going to be using it or they're going to be left behind. So, for the lawyers out there that are scared of AI, you need to start looking at it. Be careful, look at it, disclose to your client, that kind of stuff. But it's coming. It's going to be fun to watch you guys really use this stuff and propel your practice forward. But so you disclose it to the clients, you give them sort of the choice. We can do this as a flat fee. We can do hourly. Do you do anything other than those two options? Do you have some sort of like membership subscription type?
We don't right now, but that is in the kind of plans of next phases. In addition, we kind of also offer a hybrid model of here's a flat fee if you want X. We can also do if you want to add some kind of managed services on top of it, where instead of you're just getting the output, we can add some, bill by the hour. So hybrid approach, it could be flat fee plus model. But yeah, I mean, down the road, part of where we think that we're going to be able to go is, as we discussed, we looked at the marketplace, and right now we don't think that there is any one product that does what we're trying to do. There are several products when used together that kind of get us where we want to be, but we think that we're going to be able to, or hope to be able to, build out our own proprietary software and use that in a subscription model and have it either be a license subscription where there are lawyers that are going to be using it, or use it for in-house teams to kind of replace in-house teams and sit on top of it with managed services. So you still have lawyers again. You still want astronauts driving the rocket ship.
See, that's the combination there of your background, your business experience, your technology experience, and your legal experience. That's beautiful. That's your zone of genius, right?
Well, genius is your words. I just, my approach is all the pieces matter. Everything you experience impacts every other thing you do. And so I would be doing a disservice to myself if I didn't allow my experiences to inform my decisions and try to capture all of that. A lot of, as you may imagine, it would be hard pressed for me to convince my parents when I was running a cookie business, after having sat at the table with CEOs and CFOs at huge organizations, on what I was doing with my career. I followed a path that I thought was the best fit for me at the time. And that's kind of always been my approach for my professional and personal life. And so far, it has seemed to be able to stack on top of each other and really help inform what the next thing is going to be.
That's really important. A lot of young lawyers come out, maybe even when they're in law school, they think, I need to decide now what I'm going to do 10 years from now. And it's really not like that, at least from my experience and others that I've talked to. You sort of stumble along, you gain these experiences, and you start to focus in on something, and you may not have even seen it coming, and then all of a sudden you're there, and then boom, you can take advantage of it. Another cool thing you guys are doing, I've talked to some other firms that are in completely different niche areas, and they need a solution, a tech solution for what it is they do, and it's not out there. So they end up sort of building it themselves. And then once they build it, they iterate on it, make it a little bit better, and then they're to the point where they're like, hey, maybe somebody else can use this. I know that has happened. I know there's some out there that I don't know personally, and then there's some that I do know personally that are doing it now, and that's really a cool approach. And if you guys can get there, huge opportunity.
Yeah, we think so too. And it is the way of the world. I think you said it. People are either going to be using the technology or they're going to be left behind. It's, to us, it really is that simple. Now, it's not easy, but it's simple.
The other interesting thing that your firm, your clients are technology companies. I would think there is almost an expectation that you guys would be on the forefront. And if you're not, they're going to think, who are you guys? Why would we work with you? I would think that would be a differentiator that helps you in the marketplace. Have you found that?
Yeah, absolutely. And it also helped, on a personal level, Austin and I are both very excited about technology. We read the listservs and the newsletters, and we are personally very much, excited about not only what we use within our practice of law, but just the advances in all this new technology, and love that aspect of it. And because of that, because of our familiarity and, being able to speak, technology and know the terms and kind of speak the language and our experience with it, it really does help, the clients, because we're not just focused on the what of the contract. We understand the why of the product.
Yeah, so let's shift a little bit. So your background, you were at big law, and then you were at a mid-sized boutique where the platforms already existed. It's the sort of thing where You need something to happen, and it just sort of magically happens, and you don't have to do it. It's funny how those existing platforms are. So there's a big difference between that and then doing your own firm. So have y'all figured it out? I know you're still a couple months in, but how did you make the move and the mindset shift and figure all that out?
Yeah. So, I would say that we are certainly continuing to learn every day, right? And we want to continue to learn and grow. And that's the only way to, in our opinion, to improve is to take that mindset of, you may have it figured out for now, but what comes tomorrow may be different. And how are you going to approach that challenge? But what we really did was we were very strategic before we decided we were going to go and have this endeavor. And we wanted, not only while we were testing the technology for the contract review and the productization of the legal services, we were also looking at, okay, what do we want as our back end software? What do we want as our client management software? How are we going to do our books? How are we going to keep the accounting? What are we going to do for insurance? Now, I was able to lean on my experience of running a small business before, of kind of having some of those processes in place, but we were very intentional about, before, we wanted to say on April 1, we are locked and loaded and ready to go to continue. So there was no gap in services for any client. So we could continue providing the services the same way we were providing them before. And we were methodical. We tested a lot of things. We trialed a lot of products. We trialed something, we wouldn't like it, we would go somewhere else. We would say, actually, we liked the first thing better. We would try it again. And we just spent time saying, here are the different aspects of running the business. Here are the different aspects of the practice of law. What do we need to accomplish what we want to accomplish? We set out on both sides. Here are the kind of clients we want. Here are the number of clients. Here's how we want to approach that. Here's how we want to split up those percentages. And then it was, okay, here's what we want to leverage for technology to accomplish some of these administrative tasks. And here are the people that we want to try to get involved to help us accomplish that. And really approached it one piece at a time until we found that we were ready to go.
I talk to a lot of lawyers. Obviously that's what I do. I find there's sort of two camps of the folks that start their firm. They're the ones that have sort of always known and they have runway to plan, sort of like you did. You can look into all these things so you're ready to go and you can flip the switch when you're ready. Then there are others who they're forced out unexpectedly for a variety of reasons. And they are just like, holy crap, what do I do? And they're in a panic. They don't know what to do. But I think even if you plan for everything, there are always things that come up that you just are like, oh man, I had no clue. And it's basic stuff. The story I always tell, it's like the first time you're at your own firm and you reach over for the stapler and you're like, damn, I got to go buy a stapler. That kind of thing. So, well, let's dig in. So, I've talked to a lot of people that, listen to this podcast and they like hearing from the folks that have been doing this for 20-something years and have built these big firms, but they also want to hear from people like you who are just getting started. So I want to talk some of the details here, some of the boring details. So first thing, do you have office space?
We have virtual office space where we can have a physical office a la carte if we need it. But for the most, we have not utilized the physical space yet, other than to pick up our mail. And both of us work from home.
And that's again, it depends on the practice. If you have a heavy litigation practice where you have to host depositions all the time, it probably makes sense. You're going to need a conference room somewhere. Right. I guess you can borrow space, but that gets old at some point. You do have that benefit. So you have this sort of shared virtual space that you can tap into if you need it. Is it a long-term commitment or is it month-to-month kind of thing?
Month-to-month.
Yeah, that's ideal. So you can cancel, you can pivot, you can do whatever if you need to, right?
That's right.
All right, let's talk about, you're big on the technology in terms of servicing your clients. What about managing your practice? So like a practice management system. Do you guys use one now? And then how did you go about finding the one you wanted to use?
Yeah, same. Yes, we use practice management system that it handles from kind of client intake and client development to, it has our timer, keeps our hours, does our invoices. It's kind of soup to nuts product. And the same way we tested all of the other products, we looked at what was on the marketplace. We tried it. We did trials with it. We tried to push on the boundaries of it to see if it was going to do what it said it was going to do, and then settled on the one that we thought worked best for us.
So which one are you using? I'm curious.
We're using Clio.
Okay. That's a lot of people use that. It's, I'd say probably has the biggest market share. I don't know, maybe changing. I don't know, but that's a lot of people use that. So, all right. Another question, bookkeeping, finances, that kind of stuff. You guys doing it or are you outsourcing that?
So we're utilizing QuickBooks. We are keeping the books, but we also have a CPA that kind of oversees everything we're doing at the end of the day. But for now, it's just Austin and I. We certainly plan on growing, and we know that growth will mean taking on highly trained professionals, both from the legal practice and the administrative side. But for now, we love our margins, and we feel confident doing the kind of back end work. Again, I ran my own business. I was part of another startup. I've seen how that works. So I'm as much as one can like that kind of work, I like it. And so it's, part of the mindset has had to go from, okay, productive doesn't just mean did I bill as many hours as I could today? And that's not what productive means anymore. And that we've had to shift our mindset to take that approach.
There's another grouping of lawyers that I found. There's the numbers or the spreadsheet lawyers, and then the ones that are not. I'm a numbers kind of guy. I am not probably a pro in Excel like you sound like you might be, but
I'm moderate at best.
It really is amazing when you see someone who's good and they're doing it in front of you and they're just like flying around macros and references to different sheets. And it's amazing. You don't even know what they're doing, but that's not me, but I can build a basic spreadsheet. So let's talk about staff. Do you guys have any staff, part-time, full-time, virtual, whatever, to help you guys?
No, we have an outsourced CPA that helps us oversee from time to time. But other than that, it's just the two of us.
Well, all the rage now is the outsourced VAs. So you can look at that when you start to get a little more busy. That might be something you want to look at. All right. So we've gone through some of the nuts and bolts, some of the basics. Anything else that you've sort of learned on just some of the basics 2 months in terms of running the firm?
Yeah. I think my experience has been that sometimes lawyers get so focused on the practice of law that they aren't able to focus on the business of the practice of law. And, our mindset has been from the beginning that this is a business. Our product is legal services, but we should operate the same way every other business operates. We should have KPIs. We should have goals. We should figure out what inputs we need. And instead of just saying, well, if we bill this many hours at this much an hour, we'll make that much money. To us, that's not a strategy. We said we wanted this many clients. We want this of that percentage of clients. We want to have this many fill up this percentage, and we want this many to fill up the back percentage. And of those, 4 to 5 in this bucket, we want to make sure we have this many hours per month from that client. And then we just, what clients are going to be able to fulfill these, right? And so instead of just saying, I want to do this and get your name out there and kind of hope that you're able to find it, we set goals, we set parameters for what we wanted our practice to look like, for what we want our clients to look like. And then we try to move forward achieving that and getting those clients. And it's easy to kind of spray wide and hope that you land where you want to end up. Our thought was, let's use precision and if you know where you want to go and then you lay a path out for how to get there, you're more likely to end up where you want.
I think that's huge. I think that's huge. We had that conversation a week or so ago. You mentioned some of this. I thought it was very insightful. The other thing you mentioned, we talk about a lot of firms. I've been in them, you've been in them, where you talk about projections or budgets for the next year. And it's really, we build 2,000 hours last year, so next year we're going to build 2,100 hours, and our rate was this, and next year's going to be this. And that's really just like throwing a dart in the dark versus what are the actions or the inputs that we can do today that'll actually cause us or have a higher likelihood of causing us to get to these points. Talk about that a little bit, your approach on that.
Yeah, so my kind of life philosophy is I try to make it as simple as possible. I think life is broken up into 3 different phases. It's inputs, outputs, and outcomes. And all of life's stresses come from confusing outputs for outcomes and thinking we have control over anything but inputs. And so what do I mean by that? Inputs are actions and attitudes. If you're a practice of law and you know that you get a client and they send you over a brief and they say, hey, we need you to write a summary judgment brief. That's going to take you 5 hours. And if you bill at $1,000 an hour, that's going to be $5,000. So your input is you spend the time, you do the work, you write it up. The output is you have a brief at the end. That's not the outcome. The outcome isn't that you wrote the brief. Outputs are static. No matter how many times you write the brief, at the end of the day, it's a brief, right? If you put a pot of water onto a stove and you turn it to 212 degrees, it's gonna boil. That's not the outcome, though. The outcome is a dynamic proposition that's influenced by other people's inputs and your own inputs, right? I made an A on this test. It doesn't mean I'm going to have the legal career of my dreams. I turned this brief within the time frame. It doesn't mean the client's going to be happy. It doesn't mean that you're going to win the argument. And so what we really try to do is focus on our actions and our attitudes. And if you don't change your actions and your attitudes, you're going to get the same outputs. And if you have different outcomes as a result of that, it's completely by chance. You have no control over that whatsoever. So it's how you react to things and what work you're willing to put into those things. That's all you can control. Everything else, if you try to control it, you're going to have nothing but unnecessary stress.
I really like that. Inputs, outputs, outcomes. I'm probably going to borrow that. I may riff off of that later. So stay tuned. I'll credit you, but yeah. That's pretty good. I like that. But I'm a big believer too. Inputs are different than outputs for sure. I can control inputs. So I want, 10 clients next year, or I want to generate X amount of revenue, whatever it is, I got to get the clients. So what is it that I can do to get the clients or increase the likelihood that I get the clients? So that's,
right.
I go to lunch with a referral source once a week, whatever it is. And so I got to make sure I have enough of those inputs to generate the outputs and then the outcomes, as you said. And a lot of firms really don't seem to really focus on the inputs. Some do, and some do it really well. So that's, for the folks out there listening, inputs. So let's shift again. I got another question for you. So, AI is all the rage. It's been all the rage the last, 18 months at least. It'll probably be that way for a long time. Every company out there that wants to raise money or generate interest, they've all now have AI components to their business. Everything is, yeah. And I get it. It's cool. We'll see. We'll see where the winners are. But let's go back 3-4 years. It was all chain, crypto. And so you're in the technology space. I'm just curious, what is your view? Where do you see blockchain, crypto? Do you have any opinions on that? Where is that going? Are there use cases out there, or what is it?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think you can go, one approach is two different ways. I think you go even further back, right? Before blockchain, it was gig economy. And before gig economy, it was SaaS. And everyone wanted to capture on the fad. And by definition, fads fizzle out. And good businesses now, right? There are good and great and exceptional SaaS companies. There are good and great and exceptional gig economy companies. The same is true for blockchain and cryptocurrencies. There's good and great and exceptional cryptocurrencies. There's also bad cryptocurrencies. There are also bad SaaS products. There's also bad gig economy. And the nature of fads is everyone wants to hop on board what gets them the most attention. Again, that's an outcome or an output. It's not an input. If you just say, well, we're a AI company now because AI is hot, without actually thinking through what is this going to do to our business? How is this going to impact our business? We're a crypto company now because blockchain gets more clicks. So let's say that we use blockchain. If you're not actually utilizing the technology in the way it's supposed to be, you're not going to have long-term success. You may get initial eyes, but you're not planning for the long-term success. The technology behind blockchain is brilliant, and there are use cases for it, both inside and outside of cryptocurrencies. And the decentralization concept that it's built around is really smart and has a lot of value if properly utilized, just like any other tool. And so, I think that companies that are willing to do the work to build infrastructures around the technology for a long-term success, as opposed to using a fad to try to get attention, are going to have long-term success. And I would say that with any, you know, there's always going to be competition, but any technology or tool if you're building the framework of your company around that, you're going to have to make sure you understand the fundamentals and build it out to have long-term success instead of just using it as a marketing strategy. Now, don't get me wrong. You want to use it as a marketing strategy, you should. Just know that it's not going to be, 3 months from now, 18 months from now, whenever the next thing happens. If you decide that you were a blockchain company that's now an AI company, that's now a whatever the next thing is company, you're a supercomputer company, people are going to stop taking you as seriously unless you're able to put some real structure behind what you're saying.
Yeah, we'll be, what is it? Maybe nanotech's next.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It all goes back to that's where it all goes back to. So let's shift again. So you're 2 months in. There are other folks out there thinking about starting a firm. Let's talk about some of the lessons you've learned so far and maybe any advice for people out there thinking about it.
So, a lot of things. For me, what was most important before anything was finding someone that I trusted and wanted to work with. I'm in a very fortunate position in that Austin is not only if not the smartest, one of the smartest lawyers I've ever worked with. I also genuinely like him as a person, and we are aligned on a personal human level. You know, find someone like that you want to be in business with, not only because you think they're good at their job, because this is somebody that you are going to have to depend on and trust and know that if, something happens with your family, God forbid, or you need to do X, Y, or Z, the unknown unknowns occur, which always occur because life is random, that this is someone that you can depend on. That was, so important to me as part of this process is that finding someone that I was willing to be able to say, I know that I trust this person and that he can or she can trust me.
So it's clear you're a very thoughtful person. And so I'm sure you've thought through this. What's the vision for the firm? Where do you see it 5, 10, 15 years from now? Or where would you like it to go?
Yeah, so, I think our long-term plans are kind of two paths. I see us in one path, and I think both of these paths are simultaneously achievable. I see in one path we continue in the practice of law, utilizing the technology the way that we have been, continuing to build and grow our team, and have a traditional law firm with a non-traditional model. And then at the same time, I think that we can also, as a separate path, have a technology company that offers this subscription model that can be independent from the practice of law and that other lawyers can utilize to help as a force multiplier for their practices of law. We believe that that both of those paths are simultaneously achievable, and we think we're well positioned based on our experience in technology, in law, and in technology law to make that happen.
There are a lot of people out there that say, law firms are really have no value. No one would ever want to buy it. And for a lot of law firms, that is absolutely 100% true. But I always tell people, as you are practicing law, figure out a way to increase the value of your firm. And one of those ways is to build assets. There are lots of different types of assets you can build. Software is one of them. And so long term, you can spin it out, you can keep it in the firm, whatever you do, but that is an asset that can be extremely valuable and make a law practice extremely valuable. So that is something definitely worth exploring for the faint-hearted. But it's as I'm sure you know with your technology clients. But yeah, that's going to be cool to watch.
We're really excited.
Well, thanks for coming on. This has been real fun. It's going to be fun to watch you guys, see where you go. And now I know where to go for all my AI questions. And for folks out there that want to reach out to you, find you, what's the best way to get you?
You can go to millsgamsey.com. I'm at Brian at millsgamsey.com. You can reach out to Austin at millsgamsey.com. You can go to the website, check out what we're doing. We talk a little bit more about kind of our philosophy of the practice of law and some of the technology that we're utilizing and how we're shaping and framing this paradigm shift from our own approach. And we'd love to hear from you.
Well, no doubt you're going to do well. If you can build a cookie company and sell it, I'm sure the law is going to be a lot simpler, fewer headaches for you, I would expect. But again, thanks for coming on.
Well, simple, not easy, but I appreciate the opportunity. It's always great speaking with you, Jonathan.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Founding Partner Podcast. Be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts to stay up to date on the latest episodes. You can also connect with Jonathan on LinkedIn and check out the show notes with links to resources mentioned throughout our discussion by visiting www.yourlawfirmgc.com. We'll see you next time for more origin stories and insights from successful law firm founders.